Hi guys, welcome back aboard good old Spiffy, our 44-foot hurricane damage DIY catamaran project boat. At this point, we are basically just twiddling our thumbs waiting for our ride out of here. We're ready, the boat is ready, all we're waiting for is the ride out of the yard. The only thing we don't have aboard the boat yet that we desperately need is all our anchoring gear from Mantis. To get that aboard the boat, because the chain is so heavy, we've been waiting for a path to. That also means we have a great opportunity to get our much beloved tool trailer out of here. So let's start with that. We've already removed all of the loose stuff inside of the trailer so it doesn't come flying when we start moving the trailer, but it is still up on jack stands. As you might be able to see here behind me, there's like some kind of aluminum tube construction we need to get out of the way to be able to get the tool trailer out of here. But once that is out of the way, we should be clear. We'll bring the jack stands with us. Those we should be able to reuse in North Carolina. The plan is to keep the tool trailer at our friend Dave's house until we're ready to move it to North Carolina. Just so everything is gone from here underneath the catamaran, so we are 100% ready to move. I found the one human power trailer moving device, so let's see if we can move this thing. Yep. Push. And just like that, for the first time after installing them, the solar panels on the tool trailer finally saw the sun. And also it is starting to get incredibly empty here underneath the boat. Hopefully by the end of the day, we'll also have gotten rid of the boxes and stuff. Yeah, we're making progress. Getting rid of the boxes here is not going to be very time consuming, and that's why we've just left it until now, because these haven't really been keeping us here. What's keeping us here is, like I mentioned, the ride out of the yard. I checked with the owner of the yard yesterday, and we still need this black trailer over here to go under the catamaran to be able to lift us. As you can see, the ugly duckling here is still on that, and supposedly the ugly duckling is supposed to go to the other coast of Florida. Somebody's bought it over there, so that's got to go over there. The trailer's got to come back. There's got to be a lot of moving around the stuff here in the yard, and then we'll be ready to leave. To be frank, the situation is getting a little bit frustrating, right? Because we've been ready to go for a while now. We still don't have a firm date for when we can get out of here, but when we have that firm date, we'll still have to probably wait week and a half or so before the crane people will have an available slot for us to actually put the boat back in the water. So it's looking like we're going to be here quite a bit longer than we were expecting. That is frustrating because, like I said, we're running out of stuff to make videos about, but also Ava's had to push her trip back to London for work about a month, so we're losing about a month's worth of income there. And yeah, it's just, it's a little frustrating because we're ready to go and we're just waiting for other things to come into alignment. Our friend Dave not only scooped up the tool trailer, but also all of the black boxes we have stored under the boat, with the exception of one box that we're using as a table. That means we're pretty much cleared out here under the boat. We'll grab the last few things later today and haul those to Dave's place where we're storing everything. So yeah, mighty frickin' empty. Now we have oodles of room for our friend Tim to back his super cool little truck in underneath the boat here so we can hoist up the chain. Tim is going to be showing up in about an hour or so a little bit later today we should have a working anchoring setup. Now, in the spirit of full transparency, Mantis did give us the anchor, the swivel and the bridle free of charge, and they sold us the chain at cost. Precisely on time, Tim and the little truck that could pulled into the yard. We've seen several of these little trucks during our stay in Florida, and if it wasn't for the fact that our fleet of vehicles grew by one last week, I would be all over one of these. It is the perfect vehicle for a quick delivery of a giant drum of chain and 85 pounds worth of anchor. Inside the drum was 300 feet of brand new galvanized 3/8 inch chain, as well as the new bridle and the mantis swivel. I tied a line to the chain and used that line to feed the chain up to the windlass. It is a lot more fun loading 300 feet of chain aboard the boat using angry pixies rather than human power, and it was a great little test to see that the alignment of the rebuilt tramp ramp was good. I'm happy to report everything seems to be perfectly aligned. When we first left Denmark 4 years ago, the swivel I really wanted was the mantis swivel. Unfortunately, it was too big to fit aboard Athena, so we had to go a different route. Luckily, aboard the catamaran, the anchor roller has way more room. The reason I'm excited about the mantis swivel is that it is, in my humble opinion, the most trustworthy swivel available. If you add a swivel to your anchoring setup, it makes sense to make sure that it is not, pardon the pun, the weakest link in the chain. In our case, with the chain we've just loaded aboard the boat, the swivel actually has a higher working load limit than the chain, so if anything breaks, it shouldn't be the swivel. The mantis swivel is elegantly simple and comfortably beefy. I'm excited to see how it's going to perform on our 900-mile trip north. For our anchor, we're going with an 85-pound Mantis M2. It has consistently gotten really good reviews, and the lack of a roll bar means it's a really good fit on our foredeck. It ships in a flat pack, and assembly is super straightforward. It is just a single bolt and nut. It was simple up until I realized that when Dave absconded with our tool trailer, all of my tools went along with them. So we'll just leave it finger tight for now. With a hand from Tim and the windlass, we got the last bit of chain and the anchor hauled up in place before bidding goodbye to the mighty trug that could. Of course, before ordering the anchor, we knew that it was gonna fit, but it's still really cool to see it sitting up there. The very last piece of our anchoring puzzle is gonna be the bridle. That's what's actually gonna attach to the chain once the anchor is down. There is some variation in bridles, but the vast majority of the ones I've seen involve some kind of 3-strand, and then of course their goal is always to take the load off of the windlass and put it somewhere where you actually want that load. For us, that is going to be even more important, because if you look at the aluminum spar we have up there, it's missing the part that actually makes it nice and strong, which I think is referred to as a gall striker. It's the pokey bit that goes up in the middle and then the steel wire rope that goes across. We don't have that because that was all taken off when the boat was damaged in the hurricane. That leaves our aluminum spar up here rather flabby and flimsy, and I could see it was bouncing up and down a lot when we were pulling up the anchor. So I hate to think what would happen if we really put some high anchoring loads on that thing. From what I've seen on other multi-hulls, and keep in mind I am no multi-hull expert, at least not yet, but this seems to be a fairly common arrangement. We have these two eyes, one on each hull on the inside of the hulls. These are there specifically to attach the bridle to. Speaking of the bridle, the Mantis one here seems to be a really nice one. It's made out of 3-strand, like I mentioned, but they've got some really nice chafe protection on here, and that chafe protection is stitched on either end. That's a really nice touch. They've got some beefy thimbles here and some really beefy hardware. This doohickey here is what actually attaches or clamps onto the chain. It is a newer version than the Mantis claw we have on Athena, and I think getting the chain in and out of this guy is going to be easier than in our claw. I am excited to see how easy it's going to be to attach this thing to the chain, because all of this stuff is going to have to come out through our anchor roller. And yeah, let's take it for a test spin. The two ends of the bridle gets attached to the hulls with the two included beefy and very shiny shackles. I then let out enough chain to get the anchor back down on the ground. There is something very satisfying about the sound the M3 chain hook makes when it closes around the chain. I was very excited to see how the chain hook was going to make it through the anchor roller. I know it'll fit, but I was wondering if it was going to get caught up. I'm happy to report it didn't. It made it through the anchor roller without any issues at all. Aboard Athena, we have the Mantis M2 chain hook. That's the one that's kind of shaped like a pair of claws that kind of grip on to the chain. Because Athena's bow is so pointy and it's kind of cramped out there, it can be hard to get around to get to the chain with the chain hook. But here aboard the catamaran, and especially with the M3 hook, which just opens up and snaps around, this is going to be super easy. What I ended up doing a lot of the time aboard Athena was to use a pendant snubber, like this really nice one from Mantis, which you just very simply wrap around the chain like that, and then you can feed it out through your anchor roller or your bow roller, and then attach it to your bridle with a shackle or a mooring snap shackle. Between the M2 chain hook, which is the one we have aboard Athena, or the M3 chain hook, which is the one we'll have here aboard the catamaran, or something like the pendant snubber, if you want an easy to use anchoring setup, I highly recommend you check out mantis.com. Now that we have our anchoring setup fully under control, there is something else that's also important I want to take care of. Back when I installed the new exhaust for our two engines, I added two Maritron TMP100 temperature modules. There is one of these in each of the hulls. They're connected to that little temperature sensor on our exhaust to measure exhaust temperature. High exhaust temperature can be an indication of a few different engine problems, and I feel like it's important for us to monitor those, especially because both of these engines were rebuilt, and the 900-mile trip north is going to be the first time we run them for an extended period of time. I was hoping to be able to configure this little doohickey up here on the bulkhead to give me an alarm in case either one of the two exhaust temperatures goes above a limit I set. This is the nav alert from Digital Yacht, and on paper this thing is supposed to do exactly that. It's supposed to give you an audible alarm in case a value on the NMEA 2000 network goes above or below a limit you set. I've been fiddling around with the nav alert for a few hours, and I don't know, either the software is a little bit buggy or it doesn't play nice with our two TMP100s. I can't really get it to work. Now, I haven't contacted support yet. I will once we're on our way north, just because it's going to be easier because we're going to be on the boat full time. I'll have the doohickey right here, and yeah, that'll be a better time to do that. But I still want to be able to monitor those exhaust temperatures from the get-go. Out here in the cockpit, I've already installed one of these Garmin GMI 20 displays we had left over aboard Athena. Those are great for just displaying data, but they offer very limited functionality in terms of getting alarms. If we consult the manual for the GMI display, you can see for temperature, you can only get an alarm for surface temperature. While our TMP100 temperature modules from Maritron does support configuring it so that it outputs a wide range of different temperature types on the network, having the exhaust temperature be present on the network but be as a surface temperature as a software developer makes my skin go ugh. So yeah, I don't want to do that. Enter stage left, Maritron's DSM 410. This is a 4.1 inch little multifunction NMEA 2000 display that has way more configuration options than the Garmin GMI 20 display. The little display also supports configuring any Maritron devices or sensors on the network. And in terms of getting sensors on the boat for when we splash for real, I would love to go with Maritron because they seem to have the most robust and most configurable sensors out there. The display is powered directly off of the NMEA 2000 network, so there's only one connection on the back. After having made that connection, the display sprung to life and we were off to the races. The display comes with some pre-configured screens that we don't have data for, but we do for this one, that is the port fuel tank. And if we continue clicking through the screens a little bit, we also have data for this one. This is our GPS position. Anywho, the goal here was to set up the two exhaust alarms. It's pretty straightforward, and if you've ever used the N2K analyzer software before and you understand the meaning of an instance ID, then you'll have no problems at all. I set the alarm limit very low for this test. I'll have to adjust it once I get a better idea of the baseline for our engines. I created an alarm for each of our engines so we'll know which one is overheating. Of course, I can't run the engines easily right now, but I can just heat up the exhaust a little bit. That worked exactly the way I had hoped. This is really cool. I created a screen that shows the tank level and the exhaust temperature for both of our engines. I might replace the tank level with the water depth once we're back in the water, but that's an issue for another day. I think this is pretty awesome. This is exactly what I was looking for. Now there is a lot more you can do with this display compared to the Garmin GMI 20 displays. It does take a little bit of poking about and a little bit of knowledge to configure this guy, but if you're willing to put in the effort to learn that, then this will give you a ton more features than the GMI display. Exactly like I did with the display for our chain counter, I have 3D printed a little surface mount box for the DSM 410, just so we don't have to cut the big hole before we know where we want the big hole. And it looks like everything lines up perfectly. I will hold off on installing the display until the night before we splash, just because it is a $500 doohickey, and yeah, better safe than sorry. We heard the faint rumbling of engines in the yard and poked our heads out to see the beginning of what can best be described as mega Tetris. This is what the yard currently looks like. There are 2 boats and a bunch of other stuff blocking us in. We immediately cleaned up the last little bit of our junk under the boat so there's room for the trailer. This old beauty is destined for the dump next door, but not today. Today she's just gonna get moved to the front of the yard to make room for a game of Tetris. Soon after her followed Mr. I need to be somewhere in a hurry, as well as a few other molded fiberglass parts. And just like that, we had a clear shot from the trailer to under the catamaran. Ava celebrated with some sort of traditional Michigander dance of sorts. Yay, team! For someone that struggles to back up with a 10-foot trailer, this looks slightly terrifying, but I'm happy to report that we now have one big giant trailer under the catamaran. This big red beauty here is what's gonna carry us out of the yard. Of course, nothing is rigged yet, so we'll get back to that hopefully in next week's video, and I think we might even get a little special guest appearance by Albert, the owner of the yard, to tell us how all of this is gonna come together. We haven't booked the crane people yet. We're not going to do that until the boat is actually lifted and we've seen everything is good to go. But yeah, this is a big step in the right direction. We are very much running out of stuff to shoot video about here on the boat because, well, we're ready to go. But next week, like I said, we'll get back to how this whole trailer thing is gonna lift the boat. I think that'll be really cool to see if we can manage to do that next week. We're also planning on doing a little bit more work on the truck to get that ready for the 900-mile trip up to North Carolina. And yeah, we'll see what else we can come up with. But that is going to be the end of this week's video. As always, feel free to leave a comment down below. And don't forget, if you've enjoyed this video,
please remember to leave a like. See
you.